conversation with 5 experts on stage. Following that, following the inaugural plenary session, we move downstairs to the ground floor to hall number 5, from where you picked up your registration badges for an inaugural dinner. We'll have 90 minutes for the dinner, and post the dinner, please do join us back upstairs at hall number 8 outside. We'll set up a nice bar for all of you. We'll have some nice drinks, and then we'll have a red-eye session following some drinks. So please do join us for that as well. I'm just waiting for the all clear to hear if the President is arriving at Hall 8. We'll start in another 2 minutes. But thank you once again for joining us in Cape Town. Some of you have taken very long flights to reach here. Our sincere gratitude and thank you to all of you for joining us in Cape Town. Once again, after the inaugural plenary, we move down to hall number 5 for the inaugural dinner. We have a nice spread for you, and then once dinner is concluded, we come back upstairs for a few drinks and then a red-eye conversation. Once again, thank you so much for joining us at Cape Town Conversation. If I could request everyone to please take their seats and settle down. If I could just request everyone to please rise, the President is just entering the room. Thank you so much, everyone. If I could request you all to please take your seats. Good evening once again, and welcome to the first inaugural edition of Cape Town Conversation, and welcome to Cape Town. If I could now invite Vincent Mapai, Deputy Chairperson of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, to give us the welcome address. Mr. Mapai, over to you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Your Excellency, President Thabo Mbeki, former President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Mohamed Nasheed, Speaker of the People's Majlis of the Maldives and former President, Mrs. Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, former President of Liberia, Temparangwa Kasarabwe, Assistant Secretary General, Department of Global Security and Safety at the United Nations, Mr. Sanjoy Joshi, Chairman of the Observer Research Foundation, Sami Saran, President, the Observer Research Foundation and Chair, T20 India Secretariat, Sujay Chinoy, Director General, Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis, Mr. Max Botswana, CEO of Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Mr. Syed Abbas Ahmad, Ambassador and Special Envoy of the President of the African Union. Good evening. The Foundation has been very kind to me. My job today is extremely brief and straightforward. It is with profound honor and gratitude and a deep sense of responsibility that I stand before you today on behalf of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation to welcome you to this momentous occasion, the Cape Town Conversations. As we gather here, we are reminded of the vibrant spirit and indomitable resilience of the African continent. The Thabo Mbeki Foundation has since inception been a beacon of hope and vessel of change, tirelessly working towards realizing the noble dream of an African Renaissance. The vision, clearly articulated by our patron, President Mbeki, is not merely aspiration, but definitely a call to action. It is about forging a new Africa, an Africa that is free from poverty and oppression, an Africa that reclaims its dignity and writes its own narrative on the global stage. Our mission as a foundation is unambiguous: to ignite and sustain a continental movement that champions political, social, and economic renewal. We are committed to setting the agenda for the transformative change across the continent, fostering dialogue and nurturing a new cadre of thought leaders dedicated to the African Renaissance. At the heart of our ethos is the belief that solutions to Africa's challenges must be crafted by Africans themselves. We are guided by the North Star of our existence, the relentless pursuit of our ideals for African Renaissance. It is our duty to galvanize all Africans and partners from the global south and across the world to join this crusade to eradicate poverty, underdevelopment, and conflicts, and to free our continent from the shackles of disease and to assert our sovereignty, free from external domination. Today we are honored to have amongst us a true champion of these ideals, a man whose dedication to Africa's Renaissance is evidenced not just in words, but in every action of his. I'm referring to President Thabo Mbeki here. The Thabo Mbeki Foundation's endeavors to amplify his work and legacy, with the ultimate goal of ushering in a continent that is confident, prosperous, and at peace with itself and the world. As a foundation, we believe South Africa has a pivotal role to play in this renaissance. The stability and progress of South Africa are integral to the continent's overall success. Our foundation is therefore unwavering to ensure that South Africa regains and maintains political and economic stability. This year's Cape Town Conversation is hosted in collaboration with the Observer Research Foundation, Think20 India, and our own Thabo Mbeki Foundation, comes at a crucial juncture. With South Africa holding the BRICS presidency and the introduction of the African Union as a permanent member of the G20, We are at a defining moment in international cooperation. This convergence presents an unparalleled opportunity for Africa to shape global narratives and policies. As we gather here today, we have no illusions about the world that is in turmoil. Our continent that still struggles with elusive peace and underdevelopment, and our own country that in many ways seem to be going in the wrong direction. Nevertheless, gloom and doom will not deter us in the course of seeking lasting solutions to these many intractable problems. And this gathering is one such moment. The Cape Town Conversations are more than just a series of discussions. They are a beacon of hope and testament to our collective resolve to shape a world order that is inclusive, equitable, and reflective of our shared aspirations. This platform brings together diverse voices, established and emerging leaders to tackle contemporary global governance issues, ideate solutions, and shape the future. As we embark on this journey of dialogue and discovery, let us take a moment to express our deepest appreciation to our partners, the Government of South Africa, the Absa Group, the Children's Investment Foundation, Global Health Strategies, Asia Groups, the André Belonco Foundation, and the United Nations in South Africa. Your support is invaluable in making this event a success. As we engage in the Cape Town Conversation, let us be inspired by the spirit of Ubuntu. Together, let us chart a course for a future where Global South's voice is not just heard, but is influential in shaping the global discourse. Welcome again to the first edition of the Cape Town Conversation, and we hope that we will also be able to develop long-lasting friendship. Welcome to a dialogue that promises to be enriching, enlightening, and transformative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mpapai. May I now invite Dr. Samir Saran, President of Observer Research Foundation, to deliver the theme address. Sir.
Good evening and a warm welcome. Look, I know we are here to discuss serious things, but let's make this a little lively and a little more fun, and we can all have smiles on our face. We don't have to be sitting with long faces. This is a community we are building, and let's do it in a manner that we celebrate the change that we seek. So before we begin, and before I try to speak to you on why we are doing this, let me acknowledge a few people who have joined us and who made this possible. Let me first acknowledge the top table, President Thabo Mbeki, whose visit to India last year, a few months ago, is the reason why we are here. And he is determined to shape a better future with partners in the spirit of Ubuntu. In India, we have the idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which basically means that the similar ethic across two different continents and two different peoples should work together to shape a common future. So let me acknowledge President for his farsightedness and for making this happen. Thank you very much, President Mbeki. Let me also acknowledge President Nasheed from the Maldives. He's someone, if you translate his title in his local language into English, he is President Nasheed. The speaker is also literally called the president when it's translated. So he's the only double president we have in the room. And President Nasheed has been someone who has fought the odds, who's a champion for climate action, who's rallied leaders around the world to look at sustainable development from a holistic perspective. So thank you very much for joining us, President Nasheed. And last but not the least, and perhaps the most importantly, we have President Sirleaf Johnson, the former president of Liberia, who will be giving to us her vision from this very important region and how we can shape some future that includes everyone. And between the three presidents that we have gathered on the top table, let me assure you that we have commitment to a better future that is unmatched. So please join me in welcoming all three of them to this dialogue. Let me also acknowledge a few other folks in the room, of course, my dear friends who've made this all possible, the Deputy Chairperson who just spoke to us, Deputy Chairperson Mapai, friends Max and Lucanio from the foundation who've been working very hard to bring all of us here. Let me thank Dr. Rajiv Gowda, who's joined us from Bangalore. He's, I think, probably one of his first assignments in his new role, and we look forward to hearing from you. Let me acknowledge the chair of India's core group for the T20, Ambassador Susan Chenoy, and he'll be both speaking to us as well as being part of a ceremony we have tomorrow to hand over to the chairs, three of them from Brazil who are going to be here. Luciano, thank you so much for coming here, Luciano. And of course, the three foundations are going to speak to us, and Ambassador, I see you as well. So welcome. And we are going to have a bit of a handover tomorrow from India's T20 to the Brazilian T20. We want to use this occasion to actually do that. So thank you very much. The reason we are doing this, of course, the first is Ubuntu meets Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family, and there are no norths, there are no souths. There is only one planet, there's only one family, there's only one future, and we have to walk together. And that is the first purpose. The first purpose is to build from the emerging world, from the most dynamic continent, a global platform that will discuss matters that matter to the world. We don't have to go to Berlin, Paris, London, New York. We have to come to Cape Town. We have to look at the lived experiences of the people here. We have to look at both the old and the new dynamism that infects and implicates the future trajectories of humankind out of this continent, and we must have those conversations here. I think that's the first purpose. It is time to relocate the capital of conversations from the erstwhile cities to the cities that are going to shape the future. And that is the first purpose why we are here. We are here, 175 of us from 60 plus countries, because many of us believe that it is important to include these societies that are going to have a huge impact on our future. That's the first purpose we are here. The second purpose we are here is because we are here to celebrate two remarkable events that defied the mood of multilateralism, which was dark and gray. In a world that cannot agree on anything, there were two events that shaped 2023. 2023 will be remembered by these two developments. The first, and I want you all to join me in celebrating and applauding South Africa's presidency of the BRICS. I think it was a fantastic presidency. Well done, South Africa. Let me acknowledge Ambassador Anil Suklal, who was instrumental, and Sarah Moetza, who was leading the academic forum for the BRICS. And I say this because I think ever since the foundation for the foundation of the New Development Bank, this has been perhaps the single most successful BRICS event, leader summit, where we have actually recast the very foundation of what BRICS is destined to do in the future. So this is a new journey that begins out of South Africa with a new BRICS. I called it the refueled BRICS, and it's time to do more. And congratulations to South Africa. Also, I think it would be fair to acknowledge that the second most seminal event in a world that can't agree to anything was India's G20 presidency. So a fantastic outcome, very ambitious. It was not a minimalist summit. It was a summit that wanted it all and made everyone agree to a very ambitious action plan, be it on climate, be it on gender, be it on technology, be it on reforms of multilateral institutions. And led by the Prime Minister himself, I think the Indian G20 presidency defied the polarized world and the dodgy multilateralism that infects progress today. So congratulations to the Indian G20 presidency. And we want to take these two spirits and the architects of these two moments and use their energies and use their zeal to carve a world together and create the Cape Town Conversation. So Cape Town Conversation is also in many ways the arena where these two distinct exercises and moments have come together to try and put together a arena where you disagree, where you dissent, where you have diverse opinions, but you have one thing that is common, that is the future, and you work collectively towards that. So this is a big tent where we welcome all opinions, all views, because we truly believe that it's the one planet that we serve collectively and together. So that was the second reason why we are doing the Cape Town Conversation, to use this moment and create something for the future. The third and most important, my final point, is that this year, both under the BRICS presidency as well as in the G20 presidency, leadership of South Africa and the leadership in India made it very clear. It's important to be inclusive. It's important to reach out to the global South. It's important to discuss matters that are important for people, the next 7 billion people who have not yet been served by globalization that emerged from the Atlantic system. Both countries realized that we need to have a community of thinkers, of ideas, of propositions that emerge from these societies that seek a better future. And we thought that doing it in November, 1 week before the new G20 presidency begins, would allow us to discuss what is it that we seek in the coming year. So one of the ideas that we want to take forward is that after this event gets over, we will work together with the MBK Foundation and put together a call for action for the new presidency of the G20 and submit some of the outcomes that we have gleaned from these discussions and hand it over to the new presidency to take forward. So the idea here is to time it in a manner that we can actually shape the discussions that will emerge in the next year ahead of us. And therefore, I'm grateful that we have the Brazilian presidency in force here. And let me also acknowledge the Deputy Consul General from Brazil who's in the room with us, and of course the Indian Consul General who's representing the Indian state here. So thank you to both the gentlemen for being with us. And we are determined that G20 in the Global South must be a permanent conversation. It should not end with a presidency. It should be institutionalized. And this Cape Town Conversation is the place where the Global South will speak to the G20, will advise the G20, and sometimes even lead the G20 in finding the solutions. The idea is to create a tent that includes all, leaves no one behind. Cape Town Conversation is the place where we will all unite. Now, as we leave, make new friends, have fun, enjoy the food, enjoy the hospitality. This is our first attempt. If some of you have had some troubles, my apologies. We'll get it better next time. But please be assured that this is a journey that is going to continue. It is a journey that is going to grow. It is a journey where we are going to invite more people to participate. This is the beginning, and I'm so grateful that you are there with us at the beginning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saran. And now may I invite for the opening address of Cape Town Conversation, Thabo Mbeki, former president of South Africa. So the podium is yours.
Thanks a lot, Program Director. The word address is a very big word. So what you've just said, I'm not quite sure about it. When you said it's an opening address, that it gives a lot of responsibility to deliver an address. No, it's not an address. Merely to say welcome. Is that an address? I doubt it. But Program Director, thanks a lot, and distinguished delegates and guests. I'm comfortably seated between two of my colleagues there, who are a kind of a protective shield, protected from my left by the Maldives and from my right by Liberia. Welcome. and welcome to everybody to this important gathering. It gives me great pleasure and singular honor to join Mr. Sarin Saran and from our partners, the Observer Research Foundation, and Dr. Mapai from our foundation, to welcome you at this Cape Town Conversation, a unique platform for dialogue and cooperation among the countries of the Global South. And indeed, I'm glad that so many of you accepted our invitation to be with us this weekend. And further, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation and gratitude to our co-hosts of this event, that is the Observer Research Foundation, Think 20 India, for their vision and leadership in initiating and helping to organize this timely and important event. The conversation is a testament to the strong and enduring partnership, I must say this, between ourselves and India, which dates many years back and has been enriched by centuries of cultural, economic, and political interactions. And so together we share a common vision of a peaceful, prosperous, and inclusive world where the voices and aspirations of the Global South are heard and respected. And we are gathered here today at a critical moment in the history of the world, during which, among other things, we are witnessing a renewed drive for a multipolar world order and genuine multilateral cooperation based on the UN Charter. As we all know, there are others who are used to a unipolar order and their exercise of uncontested hegemony. It's therefore self-evident that there will be a contest between the two tendencies, the striving for a multipolar world order on one hand and the impulse to maintain a unipolar order. Necessarily, this means there will be instability in the world and a prevalent sense of uncertainty about the future concerning all areas of human activity. Ever since the independence of India in 1945 and the birth of the People's Republic of China in 1949, and the emergence of other independent states as colonialism continued to collapse, the feeling has existed among the newly liberated countries that they should get together to agree on what they should do to pursue their common interests. And this is what led, of course, to the convening of the African and Asian Bandung Conference in Indonesia in 1955, which agreed on a common program of action. And all this eventually led to the emergence of the non-aligned movement, which defined the relationship of the Global South to the superpowers of the day. And even as the non-aligned movement was continuing to do its work, the countries of the South as a whole, including Latin America, considered it important that the matter of world trade must be discussed through the United Nations. This led to the establishment of the UN Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, which first met in Geneva in 1964. The Group of 77 emerged at the end of this first UNCTAD, the 77 being the developing countries represented at that conference. And they called for a new order in terms of international trade. And the foundation of the G77 plus China was therefore yet another example of the Global South coming together jointly to represent its interests concerning the area of international trade and development. And here I must mention that, again, as we all know, the G77 plus China continued to pursue what they had described in their founding declaration as a new framework of international trade that is wholly consistent with the needs of accelerated development. As a result, in May 1974, the UN General Assembly adopted the famous Declaration on the Establishment of a New International Economic Order. to indicate the extent of the victory scored by the Global South in this regard, let me read part of the very first paragraph of that General Assembly declaration. It said, "We, the members of the United Nations, solemnly proclaim our united determination to work urgently for the establishment of a new international order to make it possible to eliminate the widening gap between the developed and the developing countries and ensure steady accelerating economic and social development and peace and justice for present and future generations," unquote. In time, thanks to the absence of the multipolarity to which I referred, this commitment came to naught and the new international economic order vanished. However, so important was this achievement at the General Assembly of the UN that as recently as January this year, representatives from 25 countries met in Havana, Cuba, and among others issued a call to renovate the vision, quote, to renovate the vision for a new international economic order fit for the 21st century, and enshrine this vision in a new United Nations declaration on the occasion of its 50th anniversary next year, 2024. I don't know if the Cape Town Conversation will discuss that as a major task of the Global South. However, sometime after the adoption of the new international economic order, that declaration, the new global challenge that was posed was how to respond to the process of globalization. And indeed, from the point of view of the Global South, two of the appropriate responses were the adoption of the Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs, in 2000, and the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, in 2015. With the unanimous commitment of importance to the developing world that, quote, nobody will be left behind, unquote. But only 2 months ago, in September, the UN General Assembly assessed the progress made towards achieving those SDGs halfway through the set period up to 2030. And the dismal report is that only 15%, 1/5, of the targets have been achieved. And it will require annual expenditure of between 3 and 4 trillion US dollars between now and 2030 to realize the SDGs. You can imagine that in the first half of that 15-year period, we've only achieved 15% of the targets. And now the other half, we must achieve the other 85% and annually spend these huge sums of money, 2, 3 and 4 trillion a year. I think that again gives a challenge to the Global South. What must we do? I believe that once again, the Global South will have to get together to answer the question, what should be done to achieve Agenda 2030, that's the SDGs. Everything I've said is but an introduction to this conclusion, that the Cape Town Conversation has brought us together this weekend in order to make a contribution to the very necessary and continuing effort of the Global South to advance its interests globally. The Cape Town Conversation Initiative must therefore serve as a platform to engage in relevant opportunities and challenges and to foster a dialogue among the Global South on how to navigate the changing world order and how to advance our common developmental interests. The conversation must provide a space for reflection, for learning, for action, and where we can share our experiences, perspectives, and best practices, and where we can identify our common challenges and opportunities, where we can explore our potential areas of cooperation and collaboration, and where we can articulate our vision and strategy for the future of the Global South and the world. And so once more, welcome to all of the distinguished participants and best wishes for success in our important discussions and engagements. Thank you very much for your attention.
Sir, if I could just request you to join us over here. We have a small token of appreciation from the Observer Research Foundation for you. If I may invite Dr. Saran and the President to join us on the stage for a quick photograph and a small token of ORF's appreciation for you, sir. Thank you, President, and thank you, Dr. Saran. We'll waste no time. We'll move to the next session, the inaugural plenary, Refueled BRICS. If I could request my colleagues to please bring the speakers on stage. Refueled BRICS, searching for purpose with new stakes. On the panel, Ambassador Navdeep Suri, former Indian diplomat and now a distinguished fellow at ORF. Madam Ebtisam El-Katbi, President and founder of the Emirates Policy Center. Victoria Panova, Vice Rector, Higher School of Economics in Russia. Fabio Vera Suarez, the Director of IPEA, the Institute of Applied Economic Research in Brazil. They are going to be one of the secretariats for the Think 20 in Brazil. And moderated by Sara Mosuetsa, CEO, Human Sciences Research Council here in South Africa. Madam Sara drove the academic track of the BRICS as an old friend of ORF. Ma'am, thank you so much. Refueled BRICS, searching for purpose with new stakes, the inaugural plenary. On the panel, Ambassador Navdeep Suri from ORF, Ebtisam El-Katbi, President and founder, Emirates Policy Center, Victoria Panova from the Higher School of Economics, Fabio Suarez from IPEA in Brazil, and moderated by Sara Mosuetsa. Moderator, over to you.
Thank you so much, Program Director, His Excellency, our President and former Presidents of Liberia and Maldives, colleagues, esteemed guests. Let me start here. I've been hearing India saying it was a fantastic BRICS presidency for South Africa. Samir, I think it was an outstanding presidency by South Africa, and thanks to Ambassador Suklal, who's sitting here. Your leadership has been outstanding as well, and I personally thank you for all the achievements from, it was first BRICS Vaccine Center, and then the Development Bank, and now we have our special friend, and this is the first time ever where we are sitting in this platform, such a platform as BRICS, with our new family member. So let me take time to especially welcome our friend who's joining us in this conversation from one of our BRICS, our new BRICS family. Thank you, and thank you for joining us, and I hope you will stay, unlike other countries who might not stay for long. I know that your country will stay. Let me also thank our old friends and friends in the BRICS, Fabio from Brazil, Victoria from Russia. We are going to hand over to Russia. And of course, our dear friend Navdeep from India. Let me also, as indicated earlier on, from UAE, Ebstima El-Kedbi. Thank you. This conversation is about taking BRICS forward. It is about where we are now as the global South, but also the global order. As our president was talking about our history, but also as Samir was inviting us to talk about a deeply contested world of moving from a unipolar world to a multipolar world. Let's think about where we are now. Let me first ask you to provide some introductory remarks of where we are now as a country, as South Africa, hosting this BRICS presidency, from Brazil to Russia to UAE to India. Where do you think we are now in relation to our big BRICS agenda, not only as an ideal in terms of economic powerhouse, but also in terms of politics? So let me start with Fabio, your brief comments and introductory remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Pleasure to meet you here. Congratulations also for organizing the BTTC this year, the BRICS Think Tank Council, and the Academic Forum that was led by you in a great way. And as you were asking the question, I was actually remembering the discussions we had during the Academic Forum and during the BRICS Think Tank Council. At that moment, just 3 months before the summit, we're not sure about the expansion. So we're basically talking about the criteria, and we actually had to restrain our discussion around the criteria. So for us, the think tanks of the BRICS, it came actually as a surprise. We saw the momentum building in the previous 2 or 3 weeks before the summit, but it came as a surprise. We're not prepared. So we should rethink why the think tanks were not actually thinking that could happen. But I think that part of the answer may actually be on the current situation. So the challenge that we're facing, the fact that multilateralism is somewhat blocked, perhaps made our leaders, the presidents and prime ministers of our countries, to try to speed up and bring the BRICS, the new BRICS, ahead as a novelty and shake this reality. So perhaps that can be part of the answer. So we should think about it as think tanks and discuss to see how we can move and how this can help unblock the current situation we are facing. In economic terms, it's actually a novelty, and we should, as think tanks as well, think on how together the Global South, and especially these enlarged BRICS, can actually mobilize resources to do the transformations that we need to adapt our countries, and as it was mentioned in the opening remarks, to speed up SDG with a strategy and with the thinking that comes from the South. So I think that these are the two initial thoughts I would like to share with you. Thank you.
Thanks. Of course, Fabio, next year you're taking over the G20, and we'll come back to you on what your thinking is of what we should be focusing on taking from India. Victoria, I don't want to put you on the spot, but what does the world look like from Russia? I think many people would have thought that we would have collapsed given the challenges that we experience as a BRICS. So maybe just paint a picture for us. Where is Russia in the BRICS?
Thank you, Sarah. Special thanks to you and to Ambassador Nel Suklal for an outstanding South African presidency this year. It was indeed wonderful. And I should mention that we are lucky. On the one hand, we are in geopolitical tensions, but on the other hand, we are in the moment of truth when we can be transferring our world to a better, fairer world. We have the G20, Indonesia, now India, also outstanding presidency, then Brazil, and in the G20. And BRICS in this regard plays a special role And I think what we witnessed with Russia, with BRICS as a whole, is that when you have their not union, but a kind of a mechanism, structure, unification of the willing, centered not around confronting anybody. So when countries, the newcomers, but also those who applied for it, there are many more countries, we see that what works better is that BRICS is about solidarity. BRICS is about multinationalism, multipolarity, multiculturalism, different cultures banding together and seeing the beauty of each other, not confronting each other. And that's why what we had this year with BRICS expanding further, it will be a challenging task because ahead of us, as you rightly said, we will be vested with the responsibility to take this expansion forward, to take a number of issues forward, be it payment mechanism, be it lots of challenges like trade, international trade, where we have to actually push for a more fair agenda, for international institutions to work, for a more bringing back more centrality to the United Nations, to its principles. So, but I think we will manage because what is important is that we are friends here. And we can be back to each other, but we look at the same direction. And this is very important. Major principles of BRICS, they are shared by each other. And we are thinking of building a fair world in the interests of everybody. We, as a world majority, can do that. And that's the key.
Thank you so much. Let me hear from our new friend from UAE. You are a new family member. What does the world look like inside BRICS? Hardly a few weeks, a few months. So your intro remarks.
Good evening, everybody. This is my second step in Africa, and I'm so happy to be here. And thank you for letting us joining the BRICS. The main conclusion in our conference, Abu Dhabi Strategic Debate, held just last week, that the global South is rising, and it's a fact. And UAE cannot also ignore that fact when it's looking also to East, from India to China to South Africa, even to Latin America. And UAE believes that it cannot work with unipolar world. So multilateralism is a way where we can achieve more. And with sovereign wealth above trillion, UAE also believes that it can help in the development bank, in helping the other countries, and in connectivity with other countries. This doesn't mean that we are also abandoning the West, but it means balancing in the West. I remember after signing the BRICS, I was invited for dinner with European ambassadors, and one of them asked me, Your Excellency, why you are joining the bad guys club? Then I looked at him. I said, well, it means that all your Western clubs is good guys only, and only the East is the bad guys. And this hasn't been changed since the colonialism. Always that you are looking to the East, that they are bad guys. You have your relation with India, you have your relation also with China, you have with South Africa and Latin America. How can you describe those bad guys, but it shows how the other also look at you. And I think we also as UAE trying to be an added value, not just a member, but an active member, bringing in new ideas, bringing in projects, connecting between Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and Russia.
Thank you. Navdim, an exceptional G20 year, an exceptional G20 year. We would not be here talking at Cape Town conversation if it wasn't for your leadership. Maybe people have been talking about South Africa BRICS presidency, right? Let me just hear you on T20, G20. Where is the world now after a couple of months trying to do the world good from India's side?
Thank you, Sarah, and a pleasure to be back in Cape Town. I want to take off from the insights that President Thabo Mbeki provided in his opening address. The trail of broken promises over a period of 50 years that he reminded us of. And the reason why there is such disillusionment that we see across the developing world today with the broken promises of the West on everything from multilateral development banks, international financial institutions, climate change. And I think the most stark examples that we saw were perhaps during the COVID pandemic, when we saw this sheer So I think, we saw the trail of broken promises, and particularly we saw the self-centeredness of the West in terms of hoarding vaccines and just me and my interests first. At the same time, I think the last 12 months or so have shown that there is a different path. India tried through its G20 presidency to do, I think, 2 or 3 that were perhaps different. One, setting ourselves the objective that the voice of the Global South must be heard on. And to that extent, whether it was African Union, okay, this time lucky. We took the initiative right in January itself to host the Voice of the Global South Summit, attended virtually by leaders from 125 countries. And that gave us a first-hand insight into what were the concerns that we needed to make sure are reflected on the table. I think the second signal step was getting African Union on the table. And it was strange that it hadn't happened until now. After all, the European Union has been a member. And so I think it addressed certainly an asymmetry or a wrong that needed to be corrected. We followed up on that, again unusually, with a second virtual summit for the Voice of the Global South. It gave us an opportunity to give feedback to countries in the South about what our presidency was trying to achieve or had tried to achieve. And we followed up with a first ever G20 follow-up summit, where you want to drive home the point that this is not just a talk shop where people come and make promises, but outcomes are going to be monitored. When you combine that with the expansion of the BRICS under South Africa's presidency, and the fact that you now have Ethiopia and Egypt as members, I think we have reason to be satisfied at the end of the year in terms of our stock taking that this time for Africa is happening. It is represented in stronger measure, and we will build upon this. Having said that, the bar's been set very low by the developed countries. And so whatever we can do in this happy coincidence of India leading to Brazil, leading to South Africa for G20, and similarly for BRICS, I think this is a remarkable window of opportunity for us to show that we can, as Samir said, come up with creative ideas. You know, President Beki has identified the problems. What about the solutions? And can this forum from this city come up with some of those solutions that are so desperately needed to address, so that sequence that the President spoke about can be reversed?
Thanks, Nadib. Let me start with what Navdeep has just said. Window of opportunity, what does that look like? What are our aspirations for Brazil G20 2024? What are the aspirations from Russia for 2024, for UAE? What are you hoping 2024 is going to achieve for us? And let's start talking about what is that window of opportunity, because this is, again, maybe one of those rare moments where all of us are sitting in here and having to think about 2024. By the way, 2024 for South Africa is a big year as well. It's a big year. Fabio, I'm glad that no one is going to be asking me about South Africa 2024. I'm asking the questions today. So, Fabio.
It's election year. Elections years. Always a challenge in the transition. At least you are not with the G20 in 2024. So, well, the first thing that comes to my mind is responsibility. It's a huge responsibility for Brazil to inherit from India and to do a good transition to South Africa. And why it's a huge responsibility? Because we as think tank have been mostly engaged with the T20 process, but we have been observing the G20 process very closely. Of course, we want to influence the G20 discussions and decisions through the work and the new ideas that we want to bring to the table and to discuss with our peers. And India has set the bar very high. So for us, it's going to be a challenge. Most likely will be a little bit more modest, but we want to do it with a sense of responsibility and a sense of something that Samir said in his opening speech, of inclusiveness. And for us, one of the biggest challenges is actually to invite Africa, to welcome the African Union and to welcome the think tanks from Africa into the Brazil T20 process. That's very, very important for us. And we do need and we do want to see a change in terms of the issues that we have been discussing. And I think that there is an opportunity from the priorities that have been set by President Lula when he gave the speech at the summit in New Delhi, where Brazil priorities are under this umbrella of inequality. So Brazil wants to bring inequality to the discourse. If we look, and just to do the Control F, the documents of the G20 don't talk very much about inequality. And how can we discuss the global challenge that we have if we don't discuss inequality? So I think that under these two big responsibilities, that's basically doing this transition from India to South Africa with the high standards set by India, we do need to think how we are going to have sustainable development in its three dimensions, looking and fighting against inequality so that we can accelerate the process towards achieving the sustainable development goals.
Thanks, Fabio. Victoria?
So Fabio reminded of inclusivity, very good word, equality, and also mutual respect. Those would certainly be the principles, but if we talk about what are the expectations, obviously will be a challenging year, first time when we will have it in expanded format. And what we'll have to do is to ensure that all the new members, because as you remember, Russian Sherpa Rybkov said that, yes, of course, there are quite some time differences in the BRICS, but we know how to overcome them, know how to do it with a sense of mutual respect. And there's already established mode of cooperation, and it will be very important for the rest of the newcomers to understand and to see how it works. And obviously we'll need to be working on their vital issues. Economic partnership strategy is to expire in 2025. Brazil will be responsible, I believe, if we keep the same queue, will be responsible for having the new one. But I think in order to make it comprehensive and responding to the needs of all the BRICS countries, but also BRICS plus the global majority, then we'll have to start working right away, even without waiting for the end of South African presidency. Same applies to BRICS payment instruments, because it's one of the very important modes of how to facilitate trade, how to facilitate sovereign choices of the country and making independent decisions. Also, NDB, Dr. Ebtesam has mentioned that UAE is interested also in joining into this efforts of making NDB more, let's say, covering more areas of dealing with these infrastructure projects, and obviously UAE is a probably new financial center of the global south, and this would be important to set an example, especially because we still have IMF reform pending. Of course, NDB is a very different situation about development, but we still need to set examples of how the new institutions of the BRICS plus world working for global. Same goes with WTO, because I think it's also in the interest of all of us to put forward the ideas of fair and inclusive trade, and of course social issues. I believe that what would be important, and what we had, and it's always a feature of the BRICS, is that we don't only keep it on the official track 1, but we always had a very, very intensive cooperation on track 2 and track 3. And so this is what I expect also to be happening, an intensified humanitarian cooperation between all the countries.
Thanks to our technical team who are really assisting. We appreciate. Ebtesam, you're thinking about BRICS. What are the areas other than development, the development bank? What are the other areas that interests you most inside BRICS?
No, I want to talk about that. I think after Gaza war, the geopolitics, because BRICS is about trade and economy and geopolitics, it comes to the BRICS, and how to overcome that and its consequences on the economy. The other thing, the financial system, and it's dollar-based. How can BRICS overcome that? And this is, it shows with the Russian, with the Chinese, with everybody who wants to use their local currency. The other thing, we are talking about connectivity. The Indian-Middle East corridor, this is part. How can we do something like that, connecting, okay? Because China has its own, and it should build terminal. How can we connect Africa with Middle East, with India, with Latin America. Something of that also in my mind. How can we achieve something like that? There are still challenges inside BRICS, okay? So how can you solve that challenges and problems between the members, and also open the door for new comers? The more you widen the club, okay, the more you have more influence in the global order, and you pave the way for more multilateralism, which is, I think, in the interest of everybody. UAE is part of that, and I think the Gulf is the Saudi now with you. How they are coming with their own views, but also BRICS has to give them an idea where they can help the others, where they can cooperate in multilateral way.
Thanks, Navdeep. Navdeep, maybe let's. And I'm looking at the program director. He's very nervous about time. I know him very well, and he's pointing out that we still have another round of. Maybe let's. I want us to come back to how are we. It was in May this year where we met, same place as the BRICS think tank. Council, and one of our reflections was exactly this point about expansion. We didn't say if, we didn't say no, we are objecting. We said how are we going to do this this expansion. It is exciting from an African perspective that we now have 3 countries inside the new BRICS. Let's start talking about how do we think we're going to be working together? What are the new areas of possibility for the new BRICS?
So I think it's a challenge, particularly because BRICS follows a very consensus-driven approach, which has its positives and its difficulties that it brings to the table. But a consensus-driven, democratic, more representative setup is anytime preferable to one where rules are made unilaterally and imposed unilaterally. And I think that's what brings us together, that we may not amongst each other agree on everything, but we do work really hard to arrive at a consensus on areas that we can work together on. I think if we can expand those areas where we can work together, and from our think tank side, from the BRICS Academic Forum, come up with concrete ideas for the leadership. Right now, you have an inverted situation. The leadership seems to move ahead of the think tanks, right? And the leadership has announced the expansion, and the think tanks are trying to work out what the hell was the criteria for inclusion. And we will probably continue to try and debate, because we would like to have theoretical frameworks. The leadership is looking at things very practically and saying, these are the countries that I would like to have on board. I think we have an opportunity. The fact that Saudi Arabia and UAE today are members as countries with considerable resources, if their active weight comes behind the new development bank, it enables you to go into areas that were previously perhaps seen as too ambitious. We've spoken in the past about expanding opportunities for climate finance, for instance. Can you have the NDB go into that? And finally, I want to say, you were there and we were there in Abu Dhabi, because UAE is also hosting COP28, and that's something of extreme importance to all of us. So I think one of the interesting things that India tried to do through its G20 presidency and the T20 track in particular was the G20 to COP28 handover, and to see whether we could, through the call of action that we've issued, actually create a new pathway for trying to meet some of the climate targets that have been set. So that, again, I think is a legacy from India's presidency that hopefully can be continued and built upon, and our exceptional relationship with UAE enabled us this time to make it happen, and it was wonderful that the president-designate of COP28 could come and address all the delegates.
And it was a fantastic discussion in Abu Dhabi. Navdeep, you always just hit a nerve as you were talking about how, as the think tank and academics are always lagging, and we are always being led by our leaders in terms of these big ideas. I could not stop myself by looking at Ambassador Suklal. He always is talking about how, as academics, we must be leading on these matters, and we always try. Let me, as we do our concluding remarks, Fabio, I absolutely loved the idea around the focus on inequality. Do you want to say perhaps a bit more about this focus on inequality from Brazil's side? Are there any other ideas that we need to be preparing for 2024?
Okay. The whole idea is that inequality would be the umbrella that would cut across the three priorities. So the first priority is about social inclusion, fighting poverty and hunger. The second one is about the energy transition. We want to have a fair, inclusive energy transition and align with sustainable development, sustainable development at its three dimensions: the social, environmental, and economic. And the third one is actually the imbalances that we have in the international organizations, in the international financial institutions. So to have a more balanced, we have lots of inequality there. So we are talking about inequality of power and not only wealth and income inequality. And in that sense, inequality would embrace all these three direct priorities. In the T20, that's also the lenses that we want to go through. We have put forward 6 task forces. So the first one is basically fighting inequality, poverty, and hunger. The second one is about sustainable climate action and inclusive and just energy transitions. The third one is about reforming the international financial architecture. It's a very traditional theme in the G20, but also on the BRICS. We discuss it a lot. The fourth one is about inclusive trade and development. So unblocking trade and how to incorporate small and medium enterprises is something that we should look at. Also, how to involve women in trade is something that we want to look at in the T20 Brazil. The fifth one is something that actually India is leading, is on the digital transformation. We want to think how to be more inclusive and also how to guarantee the citizens' its rights and to avoid discrimination. And the sixth one is about strengthening multilateralism and global governance. So these are the 6 task forces that we'll be working on. But tomorrow we are going to listen more about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Fabio. Victoria, I don't know what the focus would be for Russia next year, but I'm hoping that it will also touch on health. We still have many issues that we need to resolve as a Global South, as BRICS around health. Maybe if you can speak to that and in relation to Russia.
Well, definitely, it's a bit too early to talk about the Russian priorities before the officials talk about it. So I will put this aside. One important thing that we have to say, we have to move to more proactive approach, because when we just react to whatever is introduced to us from the outside, then we lose by definition. We lose by definition if we react. So this should be a proactive approach. We should think of the new principles of areas that are vital for the whole of humanity. And BRICS has very diverse countries, and we can, as everybody said, we don't always agree with each other, but that's also important because this way we can draft kind of common lines, common principles that would be in the interest of everybody. And this is not just, we discussed earlier, just energy transition or climate issues, but also social issues that are vital for their healthy development of our societies, of our people, because we all realize that in this age of new technologies, it's not the technology that is on the first place, it's the person, it's the human being that comes first, and that is why we definitely have to be talking more in the light of their upcoming new diseases, pandemics, with their initiatives that South Africa put with Vaccine Research Center. We've been discussing it even before in different domains. It's the social health network that should be introduced for all the countries. So this is also economic, social, humanitarian issues should be there on the table, and I'm quite sure that BRICS would not be able to avoid those. But main point, once again, it's about proactive approach. We cannot react to something that is introduced to us from the outside. We should set the ideas and rules of our own and offer it to the world.
Let me change tact as I ask our new family member a different question. It's often argued that the expansion of BRICS is a direct challenge and even the death of the superpower worst. How has your introduction in the new BRICS been received at UAE?
At UAE? No, it was welcomed at UAE, but wasn't welcomed by the West, as I said, because China's there, but for UAE, it's an opportunity, a strategic opportunity to diversify its partnership. We diversify when we pivot to India, we also look to China, we look to Africa, and now in terms of organization also, not only on bilateral, but also in organization. And I think, UAE always dynamic. So it's not only joining and thinking, after that, what can we achieve? What can we bring new ideas here? No, I think all the institutions inside UAE, they are implementing that and seeing. Also, they are looking to have BRICS next time they're meeting in UAE. Nadeep, there's only one, I will give it to you, 1 minute. Sorry.
Navdeep, you have 30 seconds, not 1 minute.
So I think just 2 points then. One is the session is Refuel BRICS. I think the weight, the greater economic heft of an expanded BRICS is an opportunity to really push harder for reform of multilateral financial institutions. And we need to get our act together so that that weight moves in a particular direction. The second, and this takes off from a point that Ibtisam made, you have 5 founding members and 6 new members. Maybe we need to proactively, as think tanks, work to integrate the new members into the culture, method, history, and aspirations of BRICS, so that as they come on board, they can participate much more fully in the deliberations that we are proposing.
Thank you very much to my panelists. Thank you so much for this panel. I think one of the important things for me, panel members and BRICS, are the principles that guide all of us as we work together. With that, Program Director, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Moswetsa. If I could just request all of you to join us on stage for a quick photograph. That was the inaugural plenary Refuel BRICS, Searching for Purpose with New Stakes. Before we head for dinner, I have two housekeeping announcements to make for all of you. The first is regarding tomorrow. If we could have all of you join us back in this hall by 9:30 a.m., we would be highly grateful. It's because at 9:45, we expect Madam Foreign Minister to join us and address all of us. Following her address, we will have the Think 20 handover from India to Brazil. So please do join us by tomorrow over here by 9:30. My colleagues are by the door. They will escort you to the dinner venue. It's hall number 5 from where you took your badges earlier today. As you walk out the door for dinner, you will see a bar set up outside over here. The bar will only open after dinner. So please do join us back after dinner for a few drinks and a conversation on North is North, South is South, and never the twain shall meet. Please, with that, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We proceed to dinner. My colleague Shomo Pratnashri Sunena will escort you to Hall 5 and see you back in an hour. Thank you.